Welcome to the chaos sector. We return to the Matrix. Every now and then we take the time to address our viewers. I think it's important to engage the people. Sometimes they want to hear our thoughts on certain things, and sometimes if we have the time, we share those thoughts. And this is one of those times. A viewer apparently is in a pickle of a situation and asked for our advice about a resolution. We're not experts, of course, but it's always nice to give someone a positive message when you can. In our previous episode, an individual asked for our advice regarding his business. Quote, liked your work on the Idaho 4 case and need your feedback. I'm in the process of hiring an important person at my company. His resume looked amazing, but during the background check, I noticed he was held liable for sexual assault, committing fraud to college students. He dabbled in real estate with a $200 million bankroll from his daddy, but has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. Just found out he is now a convicted felon for real estate fraud and has cases pending of withholding classified security documents from our country. He did recently launch a coin company and is selling his own branded watches, but I'm kind of thinking this guy is a grifter and only looking out for himself. Thoughts? Unquote. Well, first, we appreciate the fact you're asking us about business advice, although we're not experts. But it doesn't hurt to help. Even a cackling lunatic could do it, right? All joking aside, we offered a solution to this major business decision. Quote, well, based on what you are telling me about the applicant, perhaps you might want to look in the mirror because you're considering hiring the person instead of throwing their application away. Or could it be that the background check is not authentic? Unquote. Seems they're in a bad predicament when it comes to their business. What they described, if they hired that person, their business would go bankrupt in a few years. Or even face other severe criminal charges, such as hiring illegal immigrants over American citizens, which would lead to FBI raids on the business. But then again, this business owner is still considering hiring them. That's strange. As soon as the background check came back and they discovered all those crimes, they should have tossed the application in the office paper shredder and never looked back. Yet, they never explained this scenario. Seems to be a bad business owner who is more than likely a criminal as well. I think everyone knows who this person is attempting to slander. I noticed they failed to mention the applicant was racist. Guess you didn't want to include that because your hesitance on a decision to hire them or not would indicate you are also racist. Oh yeah, we gotcha. This business owner is racist. You piece of shit. You see, when the left tries to be funny and slander, it's not authentic humor because it's shrouded with arrogance, entitlement, condescension, and an underlying condition of insecurity and dishonesty. Insecure comedians are in fact funny. You know why? Because they're honest about their insecurities. But lefties won't admit their insecurities, usually in the realm of intelligence. So they mask this insecurity of incompetence with intellectualism. And that's why the jokes don't hit home, because it's not from a place of intelligence. You're too busy trying to sound sarcastic instead of the joke coming naturally to you. In other words, you're dumb and not funny. Yeah, the reason we're going there is because this viewer is attacking us based on assuming we support Trump. It's that passive-aggressive attack, indirect, coded, thinking they can tiptoe around with it. No, you would have done better just making a claim for Harris based on policies. But, that's kind of hard to do. The reason we know this is a lefty is because they personally attack Trump instead of focusing on policies first. If the policies suck, then we would actually agree with the take, as it's, just the common political satire many people share. But there is nothing about Trump's policies, yet it's supposed to be a rebuttal to our analysis of Harris's policies, right? So, to conclude it, Trump's Make America Great Again policies, which were working, by the way, can't be challenged. So the next attack is he's a failed business owner who had his father hold his hand. How long was that ago, right? I mean, Trump is a damn senior citizen now. You sound like a high schooler complaining about another student's wealthy upbringing. Name one economic policy that hurt the American people under Trump. I'll wait. I can name several economic policies that hurt the American people under the current administration. This is what it's all about when choosing who to hire for your company. Rumors are not facts. Heck, even facts are not facts, according to fact checkers. A tough-nosed blabbermouth who agitates the so-called politically correct crowd yet who actually made good on his promise to make America great again by the facts. Or a man who can't remember his name half the time, and a vice president who spent most of that presidency clearly sedated. I think as a business owner, I take the applicant who's rough around the edges as opposed to the applicant who can't perform basic arithmetic. Okay, they got their 15 seconds of exposure, but let's address the issue of business and Harris's proposed tax deductions.
Nice take on the business owner. Seems he needs a background check more so than the applicant. Go figure. Keep in mind, a tax deduction is essentially a tax cut, although they won't classify as such. Why? Because Harris is proposing to give small business owners and entrepreneurs tax cuts, but not the average American citizens, the working class or the middle class in which she grew up in. Quote, the proposal, announced during a speech in New Hampshire, would increase small businesses' $5,000 allowable deduction for startup expenses to $50,000, Harris said, adding, it's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business. Okay, wait, you see? Harris proposes to give tax cuts to individuals starting a business, but won't propose a tax cut for the American citizens as a whole. Again, we break that down once more. Hopefully that business owner is listening. Why is it so difficult to propose an economic plan of cutting taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000? You see? More money in their pockets. It revitalizes the economy. As prices drop, as more consumers can afford those prices, which companies want to keep it that way, so they drop the prices, which increases consumer spending. If you don't cut taxes for the American workers, which stabilizes consumer spending, then how do you expect to fix inflation? Rhetorical question, of course. If you won't cut taxes for anyone making less than $400,000, raise taxes on anyone making $400,000 or more, this will only lead to prices staying high. And Harris thinks she can convince the American people that it's the companies that are maliciously raising prices. They aren't fooled by that, even though they're dealing with high prices at the same time. And that's another example of Harris being dumbfounded, because the American people may not be economists, but they know that businesses do what they have to do to survive, just like they do. A new car manufacturer builds their first sports car. They build 100 models to gauge the market, want to limit potential profit loss, The manufacturing costs for this sports car is $25,000. This is about $2.5 million in manufacturing. Okay, they have their manufacturing costs, they have their sports car ready to hit the market. But they also have to determine the price tag in relation to their manufacturing cost. They decide on a price tag of $35,000, projected $3.5 million in sales, and a $1 million profit margin. Hits the dealerships, tagged at $35,000. In their first year, though, they only sold 40 models at $1.4 million in sales and $2.1 million in profit loss. Okay, not the end of the world. Happens all the time with businesses. The remaining 60 vehicles, they decide to slash the price. Instead of $35,000, they tag it at $30,000. The consumers are pleased, and they sell the remaining 60 vehicles, making $1.8 million. Subtracting this amount from the $2.1 million profit loss, you have $300,000 in total losses. Not bad, but definitely not that successful in the auto industry. The next year, though, they balance the price out to $28,000 at 200 vehicles manufactured, wiggle around with manufacturing cost, which saves them a few $1,000s on production, shaving down some of that cost to maximize the profit. So 200 vehicles produced with an average manufacturing cost of $20,000, tagged at $28,000, give you a projected $5.6 million in sales. Lo and behold, due to the popularity of this vehicle, they in fact sell all 200 vehicles that year, giving them $5.6 million in sales. Subtract the manufacturing cost, and you have $700,000 in profit. They decide to add a racing edition of this sports car to the table. $30,000 in manufacturing cost, produce 50 vehicles, tagged at $50,000. The point, you keep working on building your projected profits for your product. Playing with numbers here, but this is how businesses think about profits. They are constantly tweaking things to see if it will generate more revenue for the company. Raising taxes on those companies will actually hurt the consumers more. Raise taxes on the company, they raise prices on the product to even out, which not only do they have profit loss, but the consumers can't purchase the same quantity of products due to the price. Remember, these companies are not the government, they are citizens as well, just so happen to have their own business. Many CEOs would love to increase wages, invest more into company-covered healthcare. There's a lot that goes into running a business. If the business is doing well, wages increase, the staff increases, more workers, more product being stocked on the shelves in a timely manner, more access to those products by the consumers in that time frame, sales generated in that time frame due to the labor demands being met. You go to the grocery store and was searching for a specific product. The employee tells you the product is out of stock, but you check the availability of the product on your app, and it says there are 20 in stock of that product. Yet because there weren't enough employees, due to staff shrinking and reduction of hours, due to not selling as much of those products, due to increased taxes on the business, you get the point. If not, the product wasn't stocked because management has to reduce hours to save a bit of money. Therefore, the product, which normally would have been stocked, didn't make its way to the shelf that day. The manager, in most cases, then has to physically go to shipping and receiving, or in the department's cooler, and search for the product, and not only bring it to the customer, but also just go ahead and stock the remaining products on the shelf. In turn, the customers start voicing their complaints and saying, "Looks like you need a helping hand." I got a grandson who just graduated from high school. He's looking for a job. Yeah, this happens all the time. The manager, knowing they need the workers, is in a jam. They contemplate if they can actually hire anyone at that point. With budgeting hours in relation to quarterly reports of income statements, balance sheets, how much money the company has made, currently making, and is projected to make. Remember, the business also has to pay their employees, not just provide products for consumers. From the production side as well, products are not produced at the same quantity as before. Rather, less of the product, combined with a slight price hike to save on that end as well. Instead of 100 cases of ice cream that sell for $4.49, only 70 cases of ice cream are produced, with a slight hike of $5.29. Pretty sure everyone has seen those product notes about manufacturing and such, as the product is either temporarily out of stock or there is a limited amount due to manufacturing. During Clover, of course, this happened, but the recovery was pretty decent. Inflation didn't rise over 2% at that time, so even though product manufacturing was limited, prices didn't get outrageous until this administration started writing checks that their ass can't cash. So instead of projected sales of $449 for the ice cream, only $370 was made, priced at $5.29. But the cost of production was cut. You see? So the business can still make $370 in sales, which is only about $75 of loss, but make up for it with cutting production cost. It's a domino effect that hurts the corporation, which hurts the employees, and more importantly, it hurts the consumers.
And also keep in mind, the profit margin is not as large as many would think, such as Walmart. Many think Walmart is just swimming in money due to it being a favorable business for consumers. But Walmart's profit margin is not much more than your average local business. The reason she's proposing to raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations is because some of that money will be used to provide child tax credits, tax deductions for small business owners and entrepreneurs, and federal government grants for first-time homebuyers. But this is the snake eating its tail. On the back end of this spending, it comes right back to the economic crisis Harris is proposing to fix. All of the issues she mentioned, such as affordable housing, well, there will be an increase in the cost of those homes. That's why she's offering government grants for those homes. Does she honestly think the housing market will just stand by and say, oh, it's good for the market that millions of American citizens are putting $25,000 down on these homes? Oh, you have $25,000 in a down payment? We're increasing the price by 10%. Then, hike interest rates up. You shouldn't mind. It's not your money being put down, right? In which some of that money will be pulled from raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. who are taxpayers. But it's not effective in improving a financial state of those you are seeking to so-called help. It doesn't reduce the chances of going into debt with lenders. It doesn't guarantee that those individuals will be able to pay off the mortgage, you see. Because it comes right back around. Boomerang economics, anyone? Throwing kitchen scraps out the back from your restaurant will only attract stray cats. You can't complain when those cats have huddled around expecting more food to be thrown out. If I propose to give you a gift of $10 to pay for something that costs $25, that's a good deed. But if I propose to give you that $10 by taking 5 cents from others to give you that $10, on top of you still owing $15, this is a disingenuous gift to you. It's the Robin Hood concept, but it's stealing from hard-working American citizens, regardless if they're wealthy or business owners. And once again, these type of plans already exist for citizens in the housing market. No different than business loans, no different than credit card loans. All of this exists, which is why many people struggle with debt to begin with. Of course, personal responsibility is the main focus, but there are components of the system that was designed for you to go into debt, such as the FHA home lenders. FHA, or Federal Housing Administration, sets up the trap, but if you're able to get through, well, good job. But there is no monthly income requirement to receive a loan. Yet think about this. An apartment complex requires a certain monthly income, as most require at least 2 to 3 times the monthly rent. But a loan for a home, which costs an average of $150,000, doesn't require a monthly income amount. FHA basically states there is no income requirement. They just expect the borrower to show they will make payments on the home. Really, translation, get your money. If the borrower can't make the rest of the payments, seize the home. They then are put into debt, and the home gets, quote, refurbished and sold again. And this process will be agitated more by offering down payments for homes by the federal government. Because the federal government, spending by Democrats, is like throwing gasoline on the fire. Harris could have proposed a $5,000 down payment in federal grants, allocated the other $20,000 to something else. I don't know. Perhaps community programs. It would be millions of dollars, even billions in total. But let's go in the opposite direction, when the American citizens are pointing and saying, hey, could you help us rebuild our communities? Harris sees them and walks in the opposite direction. In other words, her opportunity economy is only giving the housing market greater opportunities to make money and put people into debt.
Yep, and economists have already broken it down. The honest ones, anyway. Kamala Harris is not capable of going against the grain. She's plugged in and programmed. She could have proposed $10 million for each state, which would fund local and state government programs. Or she could have proposed to provide tenants eviction protections for up to 6 months or a year, due to the current economic crisis. The local and state government programs, of course, would offer financial assistance in paying bills, helping citizens stay afloat. As far as the cost of groceries, well, either invest more in federal funding for local and state programs, or just propose a relief package for American citizens, up to $250 in grocery vouchers. Do you know how many households would appreciate that? Perhaps a $50 food credit, mailed to each adult every month. That's $50 saved on groceries. As for gas prices, distribute $50 gift cards for gas purchases, which can be reloadable after exhausted. Good stuff, Yeah, these are more comprehensive plans for the American citizens, which are directly related to that economic crisis. And it shows that Harris does concern herself with this crisis, as she is taking action to help fix the problem. Trump would have to give it to her. Her plans would be worthy of a compliment. Even though she is half of the cause and effects of the problem, Trump couldn't really rebut it directly. But her policies show where she stands, and that's in quicksand. Because it's the Democratic Party who pulls all of their candidates down. Some have left the party before they were swallowed alive. But my colleague made the best point about her plan. It doesn't reduce the chances of borrowers going into debt. The federal government grant does nothing to change this issue, because these loans already exist. Home lenders offer 0 down payments, no income requirements, low interest rates. They dangle all the trinkets in front of you, hoping you fall out of your chair trying to grab it. Here's the thing. Harris claims that citizens are complaining that homes are too expensive, right? Well, isn't this your problem? Your administration burned so much money. Now you're seeing the consequences of that. You can't offer federal government grants for first-time homebuyers because homes are too expensive when you're part of the reason for it. And also, it's not really the first-time homebuyers who are complaining. It is current buyers who have seen their mortgage rates go up, along with insurance and other charges. It's a trap set up to get people to spend their hard-earned money and then end up struggling to pay on their mortgages. But anywho, let's touch on the latest. Again, Harris is, I think she has already conceded defeat against Trump. Harris just visited the southern border, meeting Border Patrol and such, and those agents weren't too pleased with her, as they had a few choice words. But obviously the question everyone is asking, what's the point of doing that now? There is no benefit in doing that. It doesn't help her chances in the election, because it's pointless to visit the border when the American people are preparing to vote for the next president. You were the border czar, the vice president, plenty of time to pass something into law regarding immigration. Heck, anything would have been at least an indication there was a concern. Crime skyrocketed. Many cruel and disgusting individuals invaded the country, taking the lives of young women and even young girls, taking over cities as local governments struggled to deal with mass numbers of migrants being dumped into their communities. I mean, Harris did nothing about it. It was like someone watching a building collapse after setting bombs inside and detonating it. Could have went in and took the bombs out after realizing how devastating it would be to human life. American citizens can't give her the benefit of the doubt. She has shown her true intentions for the country. But at the same time, this is an admission by Kamala Harris that she wasn't prepared to be vice president. She wasn't prepared to tackle the crisis at the border. She was in over her head, campaigning for president, and now she's walking away by showing Trump he was right, and she'll just step aside and let him deal with these problems. By this analysis and the optics of her visit, I can say that's a bit noble of Harris, conceding defeat in a very discreet, subliminal manner, but she doesn't have the courage to literally state that. It only hurts her chances of being elected. There is no benefit of that visit. Rewind back to year 2021 with this same image. Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris visited the southern border to discuss the administration's immigration policies with Border Patrol agents. In the visit, Border Patrol agents laid out a plan that they believe will significantly decrease the amount of illegal crossings. The Vice President seemed to agree with the plan and has been in discussions with President Biden about the proposal from Border Patrol. Months later, the administration passed a revised immigration bill that requires all immigrants to basically apply for citizenship prior to entering the country. They believe this policy and the process will reduce the amount of family separation, reduce unaccompanied minors crossing the border, and crack down on human trafficking and drug smuggling, which have become multi-billion-dollar industries. The application does not cover the entire citizenship process, but there are appointments scheduled with Mexican immigration agents and the government, which require every migrant to complete before arriving at the United States border. The administration believes that this will weed out many illegal immigrants who are crossing the border and claiming asylum. In this immigration reform bill, the majority, at least in context, the majority of migrants crossing the border are pre-approved asylum seekers and migrants seeking citizenship. They present their copy of their applications, which are signed and sealed by both the Mexican and United States government, and they are allowed to enter legally. And as a result, a more peaceful and functional border that shows the rest of the world the United States is the example of power, strength, compassion, and uphold the law. Harris is seen as a pretty damn good vice president, to be honest, as she helps solve the immigration problem. And this would make her a formidable foe for Trump in the presidential debates. Trump has his guns, Harris has her guns, and we would have had a good old gunfight. Quickest draw usually comes out on top. But of course, that is wishful thinking for genuine Democrats and even Republicans, as they wanted her to be a challenge. You have the hawks who love the art of the battle. It's politics. Instead, we have an old man who's lost a step or two, but still has that it factor, against a younger woman who you would think would bring more energy to the table, but it can't be generated from a place that has no energy source. For example, Harris is often using terms like ambition, dreams, and aspirations. But if this is how you are describing the American people, and yet you don't give off the energy of ambition, dreams, and aspirations, the message doesn't connect to them, like a motivational coach showing no motivation to motivate the individual. Trump doesn't really have that interpersonal skill in communicating. He's more blunt about the issues. Although he isn't a very good communicator, as articulation, determination is what drives him, and that determination is what the American people resonate with. So in conclusion, I think Harris will decide to basically concede without officially conceding, if you catch my drift. Visiting the border is a sign she is conceding. Her interviews are basically saying, I tried to propose something in a short span of time. May have been a bit unrealistic to some, but I was called in on my day off out of nowhere, and it didn't work out. If she would actually give the American people this explanation, I think she would redeem her political career and reputation. There are two versions of Kamala Harris that have the same problem. On one side, she's just a, quote, middle-class woman who grew up fairly well, lived in San Francisco, and doesn't have much knowledge and experience politically. That's fine, that doesn't disqualify you, but you do have to be willing to learn and adapt. This version of Kamala Harris in politics is a bit more acceptable because there isn't a machine behind her pushing buttons, which is the other side. This version is the same inexperienced politician, but is fueled by and pushed by the machine, which has destroyed her reputation. And it seems she isn't willing to disconnect the wires that are controlling her every move. Continuing to mudsling will only destroy what glimpse of potential she did have. Remember these words, honesty is the best policy. This is the Chaos Sector.